Okay, so welcome to College Money Night, and we're going to talk about paying for college. Um, this is kind of our agenda for what we're going to be going over, so I'm going to get started. So the first is welcome to everybody, and we're going to talk about why we're here. So obviously, we promote college. We're a college prep school, but that sometimes still needs to be said. Why is that? Why is college so important? Well, college is an investment. A college is an investment in someone's future. So 72% of the jobs in the US will require a post-secondary education by 2031. So we want our students to be competitive and ready for that before that year comes. So that's why we want to make sure that they're ready for that. But I've also noted here like the difference in that. So coming out with a high school diploma, on average, students would make about $36,000 for their income, whereas those who have a bachelor's degree, the average start is 60,000. So that's what we want to promote for them. Um, Here's a little bit more in-depth look at this, a degree versus on-the-job training. So all the blue bars there are in a field where it's based on them having some sort of training, or that's an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, some or higher degree, some sort of degree. And then the red bar right underneath it for a same or similar job is one where they received on the job training rather than the degree. So this is seeing like in some cases it's a huge gap, in some cases it's smaller, but there's still a gap between those. And you can see with these hourly wages, like, so, a nursing assistant, which was what you could get with just on the job training, that hourly wage versus what you would see with if you got if you were an RN, meaning you either completed the certificate that you would need from a career tech, or you got an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. And then that goes further than that. Like, that's just showing you for an RN. If you go the bachelor's track for nursing and you get a CPN or CNA, like, then like all those are going to have different starting hourly wages, and they all have different degrees of how much education they need. Um, we want to talk about what's the real cost of college, because sometimes it's kind of buried within all of that. You'll see something and it says tuition, and a lot of people just see tuition and they think that's the amount. But I'm showing you here, the tuition is only about, if you're including housing, the tuition is only is less than half of what you're paying. If you're including housing, housing is almost half of the cost there. And it should be noted that most four-year universities require students to live on campus their first year of college. Their freshman year, they're required to live on campus. And even though that housing looks huge and you think, well, like, I just will try to not do housing so I can save that money, paying for a dorm is actually significantly less expensive most of the time than getting housing on your own. Otherwise, you're sharing with people, and then you have that, as anybody who's had a roommate where you split bills and including rent, sometimes that can go poorly. So this can still be, pretty solid. And the example I've actually taken is from my alma mater, Northeastern State University. I actually got their current cost and looked at it this way. So as you can see here, the tuition itself for that is a little over $7,000. The housing would be about $10,000. Books and supplies, and that's even in the more digital world, that when there's more textbooks, that number can actually get even heftier. Textbooks can be very expensive. And then transportation and personal expenses, because that's especially if you're not living on campus, you're driving to and from, but also to and from jobs potentially. And it's also going to be like the fees that you have to pay for your parking permits, and then other expenses that come along with that. So the estimated cost, if they got, this is based on no grants or scholarships, the estimated cost for a student to attend NSU would be $22,000. So that tag can seem a lot. And that is probably one of the main reasons people don't end up going to college, is because they see a figure like this and think that's just more than I can think to bear. But that's why we look for ways to fund it. The first thing is we look at our family's financial planning. How much money can the family help to provide for paying for that? That maybe there was money saved already to help with that. Maybe that is the parents and the student can look at how much they can split the cost of that, and work on that together. There's also student loans. I know that I was sort of brought up with the idea of like, do not ever borrow money, but I did learn that there can be strategy to doing loans and it can still work out. But and if that is a way, remember we said this is an investment in the future, so that is something there that is worth looking at as an option. And so that's borrowed money that has to be repaid after graduation. And we'll get into more specifics of those loans later. But we want to not pay that money back, right? So scholarships, that's a big one. That's free money. So it can be based on merit, which means that it's a GPA or a test score, or a combination of those that earns them that scholarship. There are also need-based scholarships. So that's based on the income of the family. And how much they can contribute. There are some scholarships that are a combination of merit and need as well. And then there's others that are special criteria. I've seen student who specifically got a scholarship for women in engineering because the field is way less women in that field. So they have a scholarship to help get more girls interested in going into engineering. So that's a special criteria that could be available for a scholarship as well. Work programs. So it's called work study. It's provided through FAFSA applications. And basically it's you earn money by doing a campus job or internship there on campus. We'll get into more details of that, but it helps work around that. And then grants. That is also money that doesn't have to be paid back. And so it is based on need. And it provides both federal and state funding, but is determined by the federal application FAFSA. And I've actually had the experience of having multiple of these. I did take out a student loan at the very end of my school. Well, actually, it was like the very end of my freshman year. I took out a loan to cover some costs that came up. And then I was on school on a Pell Grant and an estate, we called OTAG, a state grant. And I did work study. I worked on campus as a janitor, and I got a scholarship from the Cherokee Nation. So I got a little bit of every one of these things, and I'm happy to share with students about kind of how that worked out. Okay, so family planning. That's the first one I talked about is maybe you've already saved some money and you have that available. So do you have some money already saved? If not, especially if you have students that are younger than senior year, there's not a too late to start. Even if you have students in the senior year, you've got this year that we can start working on putting some money aside to help with that. Specifically, I've noted here the 529 savings plan, and I'll put the website for that up here in a second. And basically, that's an Oklahoma-based savings plan that it has some tax benefits to it. So it can be really helpful to use that as a savings plan. And then families need to have an honest conversation about what is available money wise. Like how much have we already saved? How much could we save between now and then? What are the costs of the different schools that we're looking at so that we can have an idea of what's possible. So how will we split this? How much of the college can be covered by the parent? How much by the student? How much is affordable to both the parent and the student to cover? And that helps then set realistic expectations and goals for which colleges are going to be something that could be available to them. Now, part of this planning is also looking at what kind of financial aid comes in as well. This is just part of that process. And that's that site. It's www.oklahoma529.com. And you can go on there and it has tons of information on there about how to get that going and set up. Most banks are very familiar with it. So if you want to go through your own personal bank to have them help you set that up, they can help you with that as well. Okay, loans. So this was the other one that we talked about as a potential is getting a loan. So understanding that there are different types of loans. First of all, there's federal versus private. When you complete the FAFSA, it will give you an option. You can say, yes, you are interested in loans, and it will tell you how much of a loan that they can get for you that is a federal loan. Okay. The private ones are ones that you set up and secure on your own bank. You can go visit a bank, if you have your own bank already, you can visit them and talk to them about that. Both federal and privates go through a financial institution. Just one of them has the intermediary of the federal government, and one of them you go directly to the bank itself. There are subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So I've noted here. So subsidized loans are ones that the government will pay the interest on these loans while the student is in school. And there's a grace period for that. Like you have to be out, I think it's now 6 months. When I was in school, it was 3. If you were out of school for more than 3 months, your loan started, interest started going to you. I think it's now 6 months that you have as a grace period. If you're out of school for 6 months, you have up to 6 months before interest starts accruing. And the loan that I took out, I actually paid on while I was in school, and I paid it off within that 3 month period so that I never paid any interest myself. The downside on that is that these are limited. There's less money available when you do one of the subsidized loans than if you do an unsubsidized loan. And also because the federal government is paying the interest and they are securing the loan for you, if you default on the loan, they can garnish your wages. So they can take money out of your paycheck to pay towards the loan. Unsubsidized means that the student is paying the interest. Now, sometimes you can get it deferred where it's not for a while, but usually it's still not, it's not as good as the subsidized loans as far as that goes. And it affects your credit. If you're slow on payments or you miss a payment or something like that, it hits your credit score. But they are higher, and if you can get a deferred one, it can still be a great option. But as we said, we don't want to have to take out loans. We want to find as many options as we can. So scholarships are a big way to go with that. Any scholarships that are available to juniors, I go ahead and send it on to juniors, but the seniors get basically weekly emails of here are the scholarships that have now opened and the ones that have a deadline within the next week, so that they're aware of those. They can still hunt more on their own, and I actually have them sign up for 2 different scholarship programs that helps them match with different scholarships based on their criteria. But in addition to that, I send to them some of the ones that I know about. So getting ready for that, the first thing is you want to have a good, strong application. So that means good grades. That means you write a really strong essay that you're going to be included in there. You're going to get recommendations letters from at least 2 teachers, and one person who's a non-teacher who can give you a strong recommendation letter. We want to see that they track those deadlines. I will remind them of a lot of those, but they've got to stay on top of that, because if they have to write an essay and get a recommendation letter, they can't do it the night before. So we want to make sure that they're aware of those deadlines looming, and then to plan to submit them well before the deadline. We want to check with the institutions first. The internal scholarships with colleges and universities are usually easier to apply for. A lot of them actually have made it where when you apply to the college, they automatically put you in for the institutional scholarships. But they also are generally easier to get the award for it as well. And then after that, you want to go to the local community and regional scholarships. There's less competition for them, so that's better chances of getting awarded those. I do want to put in that note there because I want to make sure that you're aware that there are scams out there. So you're never going to pay a fee to apply for a scholarship. If they say you have to pay a fee to apply for it, it's not a valid scholarship. Scholarships don't work that way. Okay, work study. This was another one I talked to you about. This is through FAFSA. You have to do the FAFSA, but they provide these for you. So the good about work study is it's on campus, so you don't have to go somewhere else for the job. It's right there, especially if you're living on campus too. It makes it very convenient, and it's part-time. They will work with your school schedule to make your hours work around that. They help you find your placement based on your schedule, your skills, things like that. Just general information. It's like a regular paycheck, depending on the institution, as if it's biweekly or if it's weekly. And it's based on the hours that are worked. They will give up to the amount that FAFSA awarded you in work study money based on the hours that are available. Now, the bad, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get the placement. And the later you sign up for your work study after you get awarded it, the less options there are available to you. And you can lose the work study. You get awarded the work study based on the application, but you maintain the work study based on maintaining your GPA. Different colleges have different requirements for that because the college is the one that actually does the placement and oversees this. So some of them it's just a 2.0, others it's 2.5. Some of them it's only a 1.0. You just have to not fail any classes. But it depends on this colleges. Most of the time it's a 2.0 or higher. All right. Aid, state aid. Okay, so this is Oklahoma aid. Oklahoma's promise. This is the big one. We push this a lot. This is a tuition waiver, so it's not a grant. So that's not like you get that money, X amount of money, no matter what. Basically, they just waive the tuition part, which you saw that percentage of there, that just waive the tuition part of it. Now, the good news is a lot of the state schools, a lot of the public state schools like OSU and OU, they actually have scholarships or grants that actually line up with Oklahoma Promise that covers the rest for you as far as all of your fees and things like that that go along with it to cover that other portion of it. So sometimes it only leaves housing, sometimes it leaves a portion of housing that's left to cover, which can then be covered by other aid. It's available only to Oklahoma residents. Um, the applications can be done from between 8th grade and then up to December of the senior year. And that's an expansion. Previously, you had to do it before you were a senior. Now they're letting seniors do it as long as they get it done by December. So we would try to make sure that all the students get in there. Even if you don't qualify this year, if your application is on file, you can always update your income with them later. So if you don't qualify this year, but maybe they qualify 2 or 3 years down the road, you can just update your financials and you've already put your application in. I put the gross income requirements here, about 60K or less if you have 1 or 2 kids, 70K or less if you have 3 or 4 kids, and 80K if you have 5 or more kids. There's also the Oklahoma Tuition Aid Grant. Now, Oklahoma Promise is its own application. You apply to Oklahoma Promise at okpromise.org. But the Oklahoma Tuition Aid Grant, OTAG, comes through FAFSA. So you have to make the FAFSA application and then they award it based from that. So it's a grant. So it's X amount. Instead of just covering the tuition, it's a certain amount that you're given. It's for Oklahoma residents. It's based on financial needs. So similar to Oklahoma Promise. They have to be enrolled at least 6 credit hours. That's 2 classes. And they have to be degree seeking at a college or they have to be certificate seeking at a tech. Apply via FAFSA. The range of how much can be awarded is between $300 and $1,500 per year is given in OTAG. But the funding is limited. So this is one of the reasons you'll hear me push and push and push. FAFSA opens October 1st. Apply October 1st. As soon as it opens, be ready, apply. And that is because these things they run out, they're gone. So we want to make sure that students have an opportunity to get them. Federal aid. Okay, so this is where FAFSA, the main source of this FAFSA comes in. So FAFSA gets you work study, it gets you state funding, but there's also these federal grants. Okay, so the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It opens on October 1st. Last year they changed the system, so it didn't open until December, but this year it is starting on October 1st. Funds are limited. So again, we want to make sure that students get in there and get it as soon as possible. It provides grants, loans, work study. The grants here that are federal are listed here. So the Pell Grant, that's the most common grant. It's the grant I got. It is based on need, cost of attendance, and enrollment status. So enrollment status would mean, are you part-time or full-time? Full-time is 12 hours or more, which is 4 classes a semester or more. And the cost of attendance, it's different based on different colleges. What they're going to provide to help you with is also based on that. And then that's a maximum of a little over $7,000 a year for being able to get that grant. There's also the Teach Grant. The Teach Grant is specifically for students that plan on teaching high need subject areas in low income schools. There's a lot to it, and like they have to, like the grant is only applicable and as long as they commit what they need to after they've gotten it, and they have to come back and complete that, or then they have to pay back the grant. Then there's the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunities Grant, or FSEOG. This is if there's an exceptional financial need. So it can be in addition to the Pell Grant, you can receive an additional grant for if there's a severe financial need. This is awarded by the college, like the qualification comes through FAFSA, but the award is given by the college. And it's between 100 and 4,000 a year, depending on that need. Okay, so that is kind of all of the information about the different types of ways that we're paying for school. We will have FAFSA night. FAFSA night, we're going to go ahead and prep everything in FAFSA ready for you to hit send on October 1st. So to do that, if you want to participate in FAFSA night next week, you'll need the Social Security numbers. Students have to have a Social Security number. You can't apply for FAFSA without one. But if the parents don't have a Social Security number, there is a way to complete it without them. You'll need to have your 2024 tax returns, which is crazy. You're applying for the 26-27 school year in the school year of 25-26, and you're using your 2024 tax return. So it's kind of crazy, but you'll need the 2024 tax returns. You'll need your bank statements because you'll need to know approximately what your balance is on checking accounts, savings accounts, bonds, certificates, CDs, for everyone, for the parents, any contributors to the students' finances, whether that be parents, guardians, spouses, and for the students themselves. You also need records of aid received. So if the family is receiving SNAP or WIC or anything like that, you have to know how much that you're receiving in those amounts. And you need any children's records. So if the student, the senior, has a child that they financially support, you need to have those records to provide that as well. And then, of course, the college list, the list of schools that you want to list as the potential schools you're going to go to. Each school then gets an award letter based on, because we said FAFSA is the grants are based on the cost of attendance there. So what you get at one school may be different than another. You can put up to 20 schools on that list for your FAFSA application, and all those schools will get a copy of how much that they would award based on you going to that school. And then you can use those to compare those to decide which one you're going to. So the big takeaways tonight. College can be affordable. There's many different ways we can pay for college, so don't be disheartened by seeing those giant price tags. We can find lots and lots of ways to help pay for that school. We want to start early. We want to track those deadlines. We want to look for opportunities, work on that academic resume a lot, especially the more competitive school the student wants to get into, the earlier we want to work on that, and then the harder we want to work on it. And we want to remember that FAFSA is also a state requirement for graduation now. So in addition to it being a really great source of many different funding options for students, it's also a requirement to graduate. So we definitely want to work on those senior year. All right. Does anyone have any questions about any of the stuff about college money or any of those fundings? Any of the stuff I've gone over? Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.